All right, is this working?
Yep.
Sounds like it is. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the August 12th meeting of the Plain Township Zoning Commission. My name is Terry Seeberger, and I'm going to let the others introduce themselves.
I'm Matt Pulliam.
I'm Ritchie.
Alex McKellar.
Good evening, John Rambacher.
Okay, so we have 5 out of 5 present. Typically, don't we at some point elect a chairperson to leave this body?
That's correct.
Okay, floor is open.
I'll nominate John Rombacher.
Second.
Okay. Let's call the roll on that one.
You want me to call it? Oh, yes.
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 Okay.
So John Rambacher will serve this evening as our chairperson, and we have a mic.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say thank you, but it's been a long day. Before we proceed further, we have minutes from our May 13, 2026 meeting somewhere.
They're in that packet.
Right. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes as submitted?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
I abstain, I was not at that meeting.
And I will move to, or vote to approve those as well. And Terry, I think, and you'll have to forgive me, this is the first meeting I've chaired, but I believe the next order of business will be to read the statement of duties. Okay, and again, this is the Plain Township Zoning Commission. For purposes of proposed amendments or changes to the zoning resolution, our function ultimately is to make a recommendation to the Plain Township trustees. Thereafter, the matter is referred to the Plain Township trustees for action, and the trustees can either accept our recommendation or not accept it. If they're not going to accept it, I believe it has to be unanimous on their part. Other way around?
Just the old days.
Yes, the old days. Two-thirds. So, but I'm going to read you our statement of duties. The Plain Township Zoning Commission's duties include the following: make recommendations to the Board of Trustees with regard to amendments to the zoning text and map. The Zoning Commission does not have to prove to the applicant why his or her land should not be rezoned, but rather the applicant must prove his or her case for the proposed change. Any amendment adopted by the trustees becomes effective 30 days from the date of that adoption, unless a petition for referendum is filed within that 30-day period. Specific requirements for a petition of referendum are set forth in Chapter 519 of the Ohio Revised Code and Chapter 3501.3 of the Ohio Revised Code. The procedure for conducting this meeting are as follows. The hearings are recorded so that there is a permanent record maintained. All testimony, anyone here who's going to provide testimony will be asked to do so under oath, and we will swear you in momentarily. All speakers must sign in and identify themselves by name and address before speaking. Speakers are only to address the board and the board members and must provide factual evidence. Conversation between the speaker and the audience will not be tolerated. The applicant speaks first and presents his or her request. Anyone in favor will be asked to thereafter speak if they so desire. Anyone in opposition may thereafter speak. If you can, please appoint a spokesperson to express the group's viewpoint if a large number of persons wish to express the same viewpoints. We'll make this go a lot more quickly and efficiently. The board members will vote, reach a decision, and announce that decision. Should an additional hearing be necessary because of any continuance or postponement, the amendment will be rescheduled for the next available meeting date, and no additional notice will be provided. Okay, next thing I'm going to do, anyone who is here who is prepared to or intending to testify, would you please stand? Do you swear or affirm that the information you are about to present is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then again, when it's your turn to speak or provide your comments, if we've heard the comments several times theretofore, we really don't need to hear them again. So we want to run this as efficiently and cohesively as we can. And as far as I know, our hearing is good across the board, although my wife would beg to differ. As I tell her, it's selective. Okay. I don't see if there's any unfinished business. So, that being said, we will move forward with respect to the business now before the board. And that would be proposed amendment number 595-26, zone change. The applicant agent is K. Hognanian, Ohio Division LLC. And the owner is Koff Custom Builder and Developer, Inc. The application seeks revisions to the township zoning map to change the zoning classification of parcel number 5215455 Ivy Street Northwest from the present zoning classification of R1 Single Family Residential to R-6 Planned Unit Development. The proposed amendment has been on file for examination at the Plain Township Zoning Office for, I believe, a number of weeks now. What I would like to entertain is a motion, perhaps from one of the members, allowing or providing for the approval of the amendment solely for discussion purposes.
And Chairman Rambacher, customarily, we do that at the close of the testimony, but at that time I will do exactly as you've requested.
Okay, so I can't change historical practices, is that what you're saying, Terry?
You can do whatever you want.
Well, I don't want to do that, so, with that said, the applicant, vice representative, or representatives can please step forward and introduce yourselves, provide name, address, and capacity, and whatever you have to say.
Thank you, John. I appreciate how you stepped forward completely under your own terms and led the chair this evening. I saw how that worked. My name is Greg Koth. I'm the owner of Koth Custom Builders. I also own the property that we're discussing this evening. And I'd like to thank you for having me tonight. So the property under discussion is a really nice piece of land. We all know that. It's in a desirable part of Stark County. And we understand why many people are interested in the property. I have multiple companies interested in purchasing the property. I have one company that we're discussing this solely at this point in time. Many of them are companies that are publicly traded and larger builders based on the size of the property. That being said, most of the goals of anybody that would develop the property would be the same. The homeowners around the property, many which have lived there for a long time, have nice properties. It is, again, a beautiful area. That's why the farm is so desirable. At this point in time, we know that they would prefer that the property stay as a farm. We've heard that in a meeting. It is a beautiful farm, and I understand their viewpoint. The trustees did not agree with the original proposal that Cahoe put together of 120 homes. We understand that, and we respect the trustees' vote on that. Also, we understand the property cannot remain a farm, and it will not remain a farm. It's going to be developed in one way or another. So, with that being said, like it or not, neither side really achieves their total goal. Cahoe can't have a higher density R6. We've already seen that didn't work with the trustees, and we respect that. We know it's not going to be a farm, so at this point in time, I don't see any other way than we figure out a way to work together. Now, that sounds easier than maybe it really is. At some of the meetings and talking to some of the property owners privately, we've heard some negatives, and some of those are, the new homes don't look like the older homes, and you will see that. Today's architecture is doing some different things. A lot of the homes in there are a little bit older. We know they aren't going to look the same. We also hear that smaller lots don't match the sizes of the lots around them. Well, when we have 1 acre lots that are beautiful across the street, we know R1, even without a zoning change, allows 13,000 square feet, which is a third of an acre. So we can't change the fact that it won't match some of the bigger lots, no matter how it's zoned, even if it's not changed. And then we also hear, which I understand, there's too many homes and they're too close to us, meaning too close to the existing homes. So with these negatives in mind, my new proposal forces Cahoe to compromise. And if we look at what they originally wanted compared to what I'm proposing, instead of green space in the center of the development, I'm proposing green space around the perimeter. Let's go to that gray one, the inset. There you go. So if you look at this slide that we see here, the developer or the builder wants green space in the center of the development because it helps the lot sell better. If Mr. and Mrs. Smith can buy a house that has a beautiful view of a green space area out their great room, that's a more desirable lot. So that helps the builder. I'm saying to them, that's fine, but if that density is not approved by the trustees, it doesn't help any of us, and we go back to R1. So my proposal takes the green space, and this is 40-some% green space, puts it all around the perimeter. So if you look, and Elmhurst obviously is up at the top and Ivy's down the center. If you look at what this does, and this reduces the number of lots to put that much green space in there, the Elmhurst buffers, which I'm going to run a laser pointer. Let's go back where we were. So the Elmhurst buffers, which are up here, instead of that being houses tight against the road, those buffers are now 120 to 170 feet from the road. So if we don't really care for the architecture, which I respect, and we don't want the houses closer. My push to Canadian as the builder is, let's move these as far as we can from the property owners with the concerns. So those buffers go up to 170 feet. The Ivy buffers, which is running down Ivy Street, down here, these buffers are now 50 to 107 feet, as opposed to, again, houses right against the road. So my thought, and I spoke with my dad a couple weeks ago, I said, what do you think? And he said, why don't you make your proposal based on if you live there? Well, if I live in the other areas, my big concerns are what do I see when I drive home and leave every day, going down Ivy and Elmhurst, and what do I see out my windows? So if I can't change the builder's architecture, which that's what we're going to see today, and I can't change the fact that houses are there, what if I move them really far away and put mounding and buffers in so that I can't see them from my house or when I drive home as easily? So in doing that, the other discussion, Kristen, let's go to the one with the lots, this one in color. That's good. So as we come down, lots 1 through 63, which is down all the way down here, turning all the way back up here, these lots are drawn at 70 feet wide. R1 is 75 feet. We are only 5 feet narrower. So the goal was, again, to put the bigger lots with big buffers against where most of the houses are. So if I were the neighbors to the north or on the opposite side of Elmhurst, now I'm seeing lots that are only 5 foot difference than R1, and I'm seeing huge buffers and landscaping between me and the houses. So with all that expense in the landscaping and the buffers, and keep in mind on the builder's side, they don't pay for any landscaping for the houses. When we do buffers and landscaping in 40% of the area, that cost is incurred by the developer. So my response is we're trying to change the density from R1 only by 14 total lots. 8 lots on the south and 6 lots on the north, more than R1. So R6 allows crazy density, we all understand that. Our proposal is, in turn for the buffers and trying to give a better visibility down Ivy and Elmhurst and push these houses substantially far away, all we're asking for is 8 more lots on one side and 6 more on the other to cover the cost of all the buffers and moving everything in. Now, let's go to the R1. So when we discuss R1, and I understand this viewpoint, some of the neighbors have said to me, and I respect it, some of them had said, well, Greg, you're showing us this R1 that they're designing, and this is your threat, or trying to coerce us into agreeing to your R6 because it does A, B, C, and D, and you're just showing this to scare us or concern us. And I understand that viewpoint, but it's not a threat. If you look, anybody that develops this, I don't care if it's my company, Hovnanian, Ryan, Schumacher, Polte, Bob Dehoff, Lemon, we can pick anybody. If this is R1, every single builder and developer is going to use every inch of the property. You've seen it in every development in Stark County. They're going to use every inch, which means if it's R1, they're going to push all the properties out to the perimeter. That's just fact. I'm not showing you this map to threaten you or get you to see my point. But no matter who does it, R1 is going to use every inch of the land. So when you look at the Elmhurst side, there's only 4 options. If you take these lots up here on Elmhurst, and let's talk about these over here. Okay? If you look at those lots, right now, those are all showing facing Elmhurst with driveways to Elmhurst. These are all showing lots with driveways facing Ivy. In R1, that's a 35-foot front yard setback. Now, some people have said to me, Greg, it doesn't have to be that way, and they don't have to do it that way, and you're just trying to make it look bad to us, so we like your idea. But understand they can do it that way. I'm not saying they will. It might not be the final plat. But one of the options is 35-foot front yard. If they turn the houses the other way, the rear yard's 20 feet. I measured 20 feet before you got here. It's from the front of the stage to the 4th row. That's 20 feet. So if they say, okay, we won't put driveways on Elmhurst, we don't like that, we can get more houses the other way, they put all the houses down Elmhurst and Ivy facing inward in the development. They are 20-foot rear yards. That's in R1, it's in the zoning book, Nobody has to ask that to be changed, modified, or voted on. So the other option is, it becomes one way or another, it's a side yard, and a side yard in R1 is 10 feet. And the fourth option is our R6, that is a 120 to 170 foot buffer from the road. And one of the things to show, we actually put it on the plat, these houses that are up here on the other side of Elmhurst, we took a measurement from this house here to where this house would be in our development, and it's 287 feet away. Now, again, that may not sound like a number that you can understand, but if you put a stake in at 20 feet from the road or 287 feet from that house, it's a huge difference. So what we're trying to do is use that buffer space. So again, there's only 4 options on Elmhurst. 35-foot front yard, 20-foot rear yard, 10-foot side yard, those are R1, or 120 to 170-foot buffer, which is my plan. So if I lived in this area, whether I was driving by or going home every night, and I look at these 2 options, whether it's this option here with everything squeezed to the inside, and what I would see and feel as I drove home, with 8 additional homes on one side and only 6 on the other, or I looked at the R1 with everything all out to the perimeter, I guarantee you this plan here will look like, oh my gosh, there's so many homes, they're on top of this. When I drive home, I see 20 driveways, and it's going to look that way. I'm not saying that as a threat, it's fact. If you want to see how that looks, and I'm not knocking the development across the street, but if you look at the Edgewood development and you look at that row of houses, and you look at that as you come in, that's exactly what Elmhurst will be if they follow R1 rules. It's just going to be fact. So I think we can compromise, get the builder to substantially reduce what they're asking for to only 14 lots, but get these big mounted buffers and landscaping so that you're not seeing these houses down Elmhurst. The other group that really benefits is the folks that live over here. That's good, Kristen. The folks that live over here, if you look at this side, these buffers on this side are also huge. If you look at those get up to 100, and this corner in here, this is 230 feet to the houses. And up here, this is 160. So anybody that lives in here, if these are R1 turned backwards, these are 20-foot rear yards. And they're going to be 20-foot rear yards. Now they're over here. They're going to be 20-foot rear yards if they're R1. That's just fact. Or 160 to 230-foot buffers. So I know R6 is scary. If you look at it, it allows business, multifamily, commercial, this and that. It allows 6 units per so many acres. It allows a density 6 times what we're asking. All we're wanting to change to gain these buffers and get everything away from the current homeowner's view is 8 lots on one side and 6 on the other. So that being said, again, R1 allows 15,000 square foot lots, which are a third of an acre. I think that's my point for now. I'm glad to answer any questions you may have.
Couple questions. I've seen it from some of the materials in front of me, but your original concept was for 120.
Correct.
This concept is for 106, correct?
Correct.
And you do understand that assuming that this were to go further to the trustees, that you would then be bound substantially by the plan that you're submitting tonight.
Absolutely.
And that makes this different from a typical rezone, where once something is rezoned, the applicant can abandon the original plan and do something different. You can't under R6.
Understand, and to me, that's the scariest part of R6. It's so broad. R6, if you look at some of the areas that are a couple hundred acres in higher density cities than our little area, I mean, crazy things happen. And R6 is very broad. The zoning doesn't allow anything between R1 and R6. It should. We're kind of just barely whittling into something that R6 allows, which is 14 more lots. That's all. No commercial, no apartments, no businesses, no nothing else.
And I was just for the fun of it, using my telephone as a calculator, it looks to me as though including all common space, roads, etc., that your proposed development would have a unit for every 25,000 square feet. That includes common space, green space, roads, etc. Is that about right? Or did I miscalculate?
Well, you're 60 acres, 106 and 60 acres. No trails. 60 acres, 106. Sorry, Terry.
That's okay.
Give us 30
Take your
seconds.
time.
I mean, the big issue, Kristen, 40% green space?
42.
Yeah, so we're 42% green space, which is way more than R6 even asked for. But our goal is to give that trade-off to the neighbors and say, hey, this is what we're trying to do to gain our 14 lots.
So how was my math?
Really close.
Okay.
You're hired.
I don't need a job.
Any other questions from the board?
This basin, the stormwater basin,
Yeah.
corner of Elmhurst and Ivy, where is that outfall going to be?
Say again?
Where's the outfall that going to be? Because you have the plot plan here with the storm water and the sewer on it, but it doesn't show the outfalls. I mean, I assume I know where the north side of Ivy is going.
So in general, the water is flowing from the south towards where the floodplain is on the property. There's either a ditch or some storm pipe on Elmhurst and Ivy. It'll be discharged into that ditch.
That you're installing.
We'll have to
Yeah,
get
there's nothing there.
from the soil and water office and county highway engineers. So that's, I guess it's technically TBD to be determined, but the water's going to be flowing to where it's flowing now.
Sure.
What it discharges into, whether that's an existing ditch or some type of ditch enclosure we have to put in, will be determined by the county engineer.
Okay. And then, Greg,
It's right here.
yeah, I think you said something, there's nothing between R1 and R6. Have you looked at R3 at all?
Say again?
Have you looked at R3?
We did, the R6 seemed as a simpler option just because of the few things we were asking for, but that's a good question.
Yeah, I mean,
That's it.
I think most people here know this is going to be developed via random, but when they hear R6, they kind of cringe a little bit. You
And I
know,
think Terry's, we talked about that from the very first meeting, and Terry's question, that was asked by, I forget who in the first meeting, the trustees meeting, everybody. We're fine with whatever point of context legal needs to do to say, when we submit the plat, it will be the plat. And whatever that takes, we've agreed to that from day one. So our goal is not to trick public trustees, anybody else by submitting A and developing B. And
yeah,
the trustees won't let that happen.
yeah, I wouldn't think so, but, I'm looking at the south side of Ivy Street, the larger lots. I mean, those are already, if it was just that plot there, that's already, you're already in all those requirements.
Yep.
The north side of Ivy, you're looking at losing 6 or 7 lots, you get 60-foot frontage, and 8,000 square feet of a lot, so you're close. I was just curious if they're going to consider.
We talked about it. We had some feedback that with the way the lots lay, that the smaller lots should be on the north side
Yeah.
and the bigger lots should be on the south side. We thought that made sense for multiple reasons. The main reason was most of the concerns with what the neighbors see and what they have behind them in those areas, that's their area. So we thought, all right, let's focus buffers there. Let's get the bigger lots there.
Okay.
So instead of 55 footers, they're up to 70 and they're within 5 feet of R1.
I think you answered my last one, the landscape plan, it kind of showed that.
Yeah.
So it'll all be mounted, trees.
Yeah, and we've had questions about that, and thank you for asking. So just like any area, like if you look at Bob Behoff's where the sanctuary runs down Apple Grove there, if you look at all those common areas, it's always the same. The HOA and the development has to make that the common ground. When it's the common ground, the mowing and everything will be set up commercially. So we're not worried about did Mr. and Mrs. Smith keep their lawn perfect and mine wasn't the best and we don't have all those shenanigans. The whole perimeter would be commercially maintained because the HOA would have to set that up as a commercial account. So trees, bushes, cutting, mulch, whatever it takes to make those areas done would all be done as one main group and they roll in and take care of it all. So it wouldn't be worrying about all the lawns and does somebody have a not perfect lawn against Elmhurst.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Anybody else? Greg, I had a couple of things, if I might. There are 2 requests that I noted that the fire department has submitted, I don't know if you've seen those.
Did you see those?
It relates to the location of fire hydrants.
I have not seen the request. It's 300 feet.
You can have my copy.
Sure.
Approach.
Yeah, while he's looking at that, another question I had was, relative to the buffer space, Craig,
Yep.
you mentioned some mounding.
Yep.
And so what is the commitment relative to the mounding, or is it already there? I don't.
Well, so we don't have all the exact elevations set up. I mean, we wouldn't go to that type of layout until we're, okay with moving forward. Once we did the whole soil analysis and Travis's group does, how much soil we have on site compared to roadways and everything else, we determine what we have left. If that becomes that big of a concern, be it your group and/or trustees, we can take this landscape plan and go further and give you mound elevations and whatever you need. We just didn't go to that level yet. If that's needed, we're glad to do it.
Just professionally, there's nothing concerning with regards to the fire chief's comments.
So those are something that you need.
Yeah, and we would work with the fire department.
I assume.
As we go through the engineering process to have them review the plans in
I just
detail.
wanted to make sure you were aware of it. Sometimes, like tonight, you want.
Do you need this
So you
back?
can have it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and this is restricted, or would be restricted solely to single-family homes?
Correct.
The setbacks you've already alluded to as being shown on the proposed plan as the number of homes. And I think I heard you say you'd be receptive to having some sort of perhaps restrictions recorded consistent with what.
Absolutely. Part of the problem at this stage is it's kind of a chicken or the egg. Just like the landscape plan, how far do we go if it doesn't make any sense and it's going back to R1 and we need no landscaping plan, we would prepare that.
Right. No,
If that becomes that critical, we're glad to go further than this one and provide more detail, we're glad to do that.
I would see it as something you would do contingent upon or conditional upon the ultimate obtaining of the zoning. It's not that speak for me. Okay. Anybody else for the applicant or owner? Okay. Okay. Next, we'll move to those here that would speak or want to speak in favor of the application.
I just have them in order. Have they signed in? Does that work for you guys?
Yeah.
All right. So,
But we want to hear from those in supporting the application first.
okay.
Is anyone here supporting the application that would like to speak? That was easy. Now we move to those here that would like to speak in opposition to the application. Anyone who wishes to so speak, you need to make sure that first you were sworn in already. If you haven't, we'll swear you in. But secondly, when you get to the microphone, make sure you identify yourself by name and address. And second thing is just try to remember to speak clearly into the mic because we do have a pretty large hall here. And yeah, let's just go through in order.
The first one on the list I had was his husband and wife. I got Thomas and Elizabeth Flynn at 1104 Chelmsford. Okay. All right. Pete at 7347 Elmhurst. All right.
Good evening. My name is Pete Jarokowitz, and I reside at 7347 Elmhurst Avenue Northwest. And my property, if you look at that map, is in the lower right-hand corner, literally across the street. My first question is, why was this application even accepted by the zoning department? This application is almost literally the same as the one rejected by the Board of Trustees 6 months ago. new submission, yes, does have a revised R6 plan. However, the narrative is literally word for word the same as the last application, except for the density number. The fire department report and the trip generation reports are being used from the last application in this application. So those studies were not made with these, the R1 or R6 plots as you see them. So therefore, those studies, to me, yes, they may be, oh, they'll be worse, or they'll be better. We don't know that. Third, the idea of even going to R6, we had, as we've heard, the trustees all voted no. Not two to one, all voted. I want to do this, and I'll do it quickly as possible. Here's what the trustees said. Brooke Harlow says, this does not meet the requirements for R6 in my view. It does not really fall in the spirit of it. There's no clubhouse, no pool, as was directed. When you look at rezoning resolution section 701-1F, the north side is not buildable. I know this for a fact. Now, I'm sure that Brooke is speaking from what she knows. The only part of R6 they are using is for density. The development is up against a residential neighborhood. People are going to have to view this in their backyard. Now, that's changed, I agree. It's not going to be a spacious area they signed up for when they moved here. Anything usable in R6 is not being put in it. They're only wanting to put houses on top of one another, which is going to be butted up against the neighborhood that exists. Lastly, I believe in responsible growth and development of the township, but I also listen to the voices of residents. Trustee Sabo, we only have one PUD in our township, and it was, in my opinion, a very successful PUD. They're talking about the Fountains at Edgewood. It follows the spirit and intent of what the board originally set up a PUD to be. Okay, it is a community within a community. And with all due respect, this particular presentation for me is not a community within a community. It is utilizing the language that's within the PUD R6 to put high dense properties in a general area. Okay, having said that, I think we have lots of places in Plain Township that are perfect for PUDs. I think they have a lot of places in Plain Township that are perfect for high density. I don't think Ivy and Elmhurst property, that's a fit for the intent and spirit and the lower density that should be for that area. So there are people who want higher density. There are people who want smaller yards. There are people that want smaller houses. It's, in my opinion, it just doesn't fit that location. Trustee Hawes said, I'm going to say, for sake of time, I echo a lot of the same sentiments as John. Okay, so turning to this new plan, it does reduce the number of homes from 120 to 106. That's an 11.6% reduction, which to me is not substantial. However, it doesn't really address the density issue. 18 homes have been deleted from the southern portion due to the increased buffer to accommodate the landscape. But the northern portion has been increased by 4 homes. And that land contains the EPA 100-year flood zone that reduces the amount of soil and vegetation that will be able to absorb heavy rains, such as what we've had lately, and it will have a more of a tendency for flooding and flooding of basements, if there are basements. Looking at the buildable, there's 3 kinds of densities. First is the gross density. So you take the 59.1 acres and divide it by the number of houses. Oh, that's the density. No, it isn't. That's not the living density. That's the gross density. There's also the buildable density. So you look at the property, you look at what land is available to build upon, and then you count the number of houses on that land, and that's the buildable density. And then there's the net density, which takes the open space and the buildable land and looks at literally where the homes are and how dense is the living home next to each other. With an R6, 7,500 square feet, okay? 1 acre, 43,560 square feet. You know how many homes that's? 5.8 in that 1 acre. That's the real density of the housing units that are literally 7,500 square feet. So that's how much property, and that's the density you're looking at. If you look at the density of the residents around the surrounding community, the smallest lot is 0.6 acres. Okay? That's 1.6 per acre. That's the density. You're looking at about 5 to 1 density difference in the living quarters. So that's something that needs to be considered. So to me, this plan is just charging ahead, completely detached from the reality of the site. Again, we're talking numbers of the whole thing. It's landscape and the surrounding, it's detached. This should be rejected. To me, there's no reason that you have to put houses this dense in both the R1 and the R6. The idea of 17 driveways going on to Elmhurst. Picture this. It's between 6:30 and 8 in the morning. These people are going to work. If you gentlemen have been to that property, looking at it and seen the street when it is rush hour, if you would call it, going up and down Elmhurst, 35 miles an hour. What's the real speed? I'd say 40 to 60. Literally. You can ask anybody here who lives on that. And what do you think with those houses with the garages coming out on the street? Is that practical? Think about it. How do people park in a garage? Do they back in? No, they pull in. So what they have to do is now back out of their garage onto Elmhurst, 17 of them, whatever number. And during rush hour, they do the safety factor. Tell me that's not, would you like to do that? There's not, and the driveways aren't big enough so that they can back up, turn around within their driveway and head out face first, which is a lot safer because then you can see what's coming up and down the street. So all of those considerations to me are wrong. All it's considering is how many houses can we squeeze into both plans to get the most money out. Forget the surrounding communities. That's not what the zoning commission is for. That's not what the board of trustees is for. They're supposed to stand for the citizens that live in the community. And if you look at what R1 says, that's exactly what it says. By the way, I gave you the sheets with the blue lighted, highlighted lots because that's at least the ones that are going to be 5.8 because you can see the houses are right next to each other. So if you take a linear acre, that's what you're going to have 5 houses. And the R1 district. This district is established to accommodate single-family residential dwellings in areas that will, here's the important part, retain the scale and character of existing residential neighborhoods. That R1 plan does not retain the scale and character of the residential neighborhoods, period. And I think you have to take that, I think you have to take that very seriously into consideration. And to give you a better example, there are people who are selling their houses in Pembroke. Not a lot, just a couple. Well, guess what happened? This one person got 2 offers. Then they read the paper about this. You know what they did? They pulled their offers. So you tell me this isn't going to affect our property values negatively? Who's going to want to buy my house? I'm also right across the street. So think of the impact on the residents of your township. Lavanya, Greg, they don't live here. They don't have to live across the street from you. So think of the residents. Thank you.
Dan Wheeler, Dean, I'm sorry, Dean Wheeler?
Dean Wheeler.
Yes, yeah.
Dean Wheeler, 7653 Elmhurst. I live on Elmhurst across from the driveway on the north parcel. And what makes me unique is my property also backs up to the old Sanctuary Golf Course. And so I had the pleasure of doing this during that zoning discussion and trustee discussion. And I'd like to propose to you that those processes have been night and day different. Pete went through, I'm certainly not going to repeat what Pete went through relative to the spirit and intent of the PUD. I think we all recognize, as we did last year, that it doesn't meet. But one of the key things in this is the harmonious blend with the surrounding community. That's the intent of what this is supposed to be. When you talk about the sanctuary, there's two very distinct things that they did that are not present here. The perimeter border of that sanctuary property was maintained as an R1 zone while they pursued the R3 zoning. Very clear intent to respect the existing community that has been there for decades. Secondly, as a property owner adjacent to it, I was invited to a pre-hearing or pre-government at the DeHoff complex to go through step-by-step the design, the concept, and provide input. I'll go even further. That evening that they had the group gathering, I was out of town. I called up. They allowed me to come in individually and spend an hour with the developer to listen to what it was, provide my feedback, and understand the intent. That hasn't been done here. Okay? When you look at providing housing in a community, it's not simply the shaded area in the dark area in that drawing. You need to respect the light area in the drawing, which is all west. That's not being done here. Candidly, my notes had R3 as well. Why are we not talking about that? Why are we not talking about existing designs as R1? I find it insulting that he can't